Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting. It is 4:30 Thursday, June 30th, 2022. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the May 26th meeting. Are there any questions, corrections? If not, do I have a motion?
I'll offer a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the May 26th, 2020 meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes have been approved. Public hearing is the next item of the agenda. It's to consider the application of Nicholas Brew requesting a variance to allow concrete off-street parking area to be located 4 feet from the single property line on property zoned R1 Single Family Residence District at 1810 Oakwood Avenue. The property is legally described as Lot 10, Block 1, Bushard 2nd Subdivision. City.
Good afternoon, John Isley, planner with the City of New Ulm. This property is located west of the intersection of Betker Road and Oakwood Avenue. A deadline for a decision on this variance request is August 2nd, 2022. The comprehensive plan land use designation for this property is low-density residential. The surrounding land uses include public and semi-public uses to the north. To the south, east, and west, it's low-density residential. This property's zoning designation is R1. It's the single-family residence district. Surrounding zoning to the south, east, and west is R1, and then to the north, it is the institutional education district. Currently, the site is used as a single-family residence. Current area land uses to the south, east, and west are single-family residences, and then to the north, it's the MLC College athletic field and field house. Notice was provided to all property owners within 350 feet of the subject property and published in the Journal on June 18th, 2022. Staff did receive one comment on the request from an adjoining property owner that submitted no opposition to the variance. So the purpose of the R1 single-family residence district is to provide for low-density, single-family detached residential dwelling units along with directly related complementary uses. This property is 80 feet wide by 175 feet deep, or 14,000 square feet. The applicant is proposing to construct a 10-foot, 5-inch wide by 60-foot long concrete slab to be located on the north side of their home for the purpose of parking a fish house on his property. The slab being proposed will be 4 feet from the side property line. Section 10.7J7N of the zoning ordinance requires that parking and driving areas in the R1 zoning district be set back 5 feet from the side property line. The maximum curb cut within a residential zoning district is 24 feet. The property owner is not proposing to increase his driveway curb cut at this time. Dave. Section 10.7J2B Romanet 5 requires the maximum width of any driveway at the front property line should not exceed 24 feet. That portion of a driveway at the front property line between the property line and the building or the setback line may be widened to a maximum of 40 feet or 40% of the lot width measured at the front setback line, whichever is less. The driveway associated with such a curb cut may increase in width behind the sidewalk at an angle of not greater than 45 degrees to the property. The remaining portion of the front yard shall be maintained as lawn or landscaped area, with the exception that up to 10% of the front yard setback area can be used for service walkways, patios, or similar uses. I should note that those two ordinance references are new to the zoning ordinance that we just adopted. 40% of the lot width is 32 feet on this property. The proposed driveway or parking area total will be 32 feet in width. The driveway on this property is currently 22 feet wide. There is no alley or access to the rear of the applicant's property other than off of Oakwood Avenue. The applicant provided the following information regarding the project. Number one, there is no alley access to the rear yard for additional parking. Two, I would like to park my fish house off of the grass. Three, I am asking to place the pad 4 feet from the property line rather than the 5 feet. And then the last, in order to make a swing with my truck to park the fish house, I need to have the parking area closer to the front of the property line. Staff's evaluation is that there is indeed no access to the rear of the property other than driving through a side yard. The request being made is reasonable use of the property and will not change the essential character of the neighborhood. The variance being requested is a minimum amount necessary to alleviate the hardship, but the property is not unique to the neighborhood. All the properties in Bushard, the second subdivision, have these same types of layouts with no alley access. So project considerations. In order to recommend approval of the variance request, the commission will need to adopt findings of fact and recommendations using the review criteria as provided on the findings of fact form on attachment 6. Should note that after last month's meetings, Dave and I went through to try to clarify some of the questions so they're a little bit more readable, not as maybe wordy as they were last time. The Planning Commission and the City Council must make an affirmative action on all variance criteria in order to grant the variance request. The applicant has the burden of proof to show that all of the criteria above have been satisfied. There were 7 attachments. First was the application and the site building plan provided by the property owner. Second is the site location map. 3 is the zoning map. Attachment 4 is a site map. Attachment 5 are ground level photographs of the property. Attachment 6 is a site map with the angled parking pad, and then attachment 7 is the findings of fact form. If this variance were recommended for approval, we would recommend 2 conditions. One, that the applicant shall contact the city once construction stakes have been set for the placement of the concrete pad. And then 2, the applicant shall pay the cost to record the variance with the Brown County Recorder's Office. We did provide 2 potential motions, one to approve and one to deny the request. Before we go into that, I just want to pull up the site map so everybody can see that on their screens. Up here. Okay, so the property highlighted in red is the Bruce property. You can see Oakwood Avenue to the south, Betker Road to the east. We have an arrow drawn to the proposed parking pad, and you can see that it goes from behind the sidewalk up past their existing garage and then kind of wraps around behind their garage. The applicant is present, so if you have any questions for him, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them.
I have a question for you, John. I see in the maps that the attachments that we were given, we had that map, but then we had also the one that was cut. Which one is being proposed?
It would be this right here.
That one and not the one that cuts the angled, okay. And the reasoning for that is?
The reasoning that the applicant have provided is because when he's backing up his fish house, he doesn't have enough room basically before he goes onto the grass, if I'm by the sidewalk.
There are no sidewalks in this area, is that?
There are sidewalks in this
And
area.
there is a sidewalk here, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That was my mistake.
We
right.
did locate the property pins on the property,
Yeah,
so we know right
I
where the
do see
property
'em
lines
now.
are.
okay, thank you. Okay, we have the property owner here. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't directly for him, but John, you did say, what, about 30% of the front yard, could be the concrete? Is that how I heard you state? 40%. So currently, he's under that with the current driveway, and if he adds his,
He won't be over it.
be over the, is what I was
I guess I have one question for the property owner, if he would step to the microphone. Introduce yourself, please, and state your name and address.
Nicholas Brew, 1810 Oakwood Avenue.
Okay, my question is, are you parking your fish house as far back as you can? I know you want it because you want to be able to turn your truck in, but is your intention to have the fish house closer to the area between the houses or in front of the houses?
It would be between the houses. Right in here, this is my existing garage.
Okay,
And I park it here, it's 8 by 16. So it's
Okay.
overall from hitch to back, it's the same length as my garage.
okay. Well, thank you.
Yep.
That was my question. Does anyone else have any questions?
And question for John, so until we adopted this, our new ordinances, he could have done this.
Yeah, there wouldn't have
There
been
been-
anything prohibiting him from that. And the reason we added this provision to the ordinance is because there are a couple places in New Ulm where we didn't have anything regulating that, so the entire front yard ended up being concrete. So that's the reasoning behind it. It's pretty common to have this type of regulation, especially in R1 types of single-family development.
Well, in my opinion, I'd rather, like he said, be parking his vehicle on concrete rather than grass with weeds growing out from under it. And all that. So appearance-wise, I think he's on the right path. But
Let me ask you a question, John. So just say it's like some of these other additions where we've gone down to a 5-foot setback for a property owner, say for instance, and then they build a garage, and then they put a sidewalk around to the garage to get from the front to the rear. That'd be really no different than this,
Well, we
but
actually,
that'd be a walkway.
Good question. We actually exempt walkways and sidewalks from this regulation.
Okay,
We're specific to driving areas and parking pads.
okay.
Yeah, I think some of the rationale might be that if you're an adjoining property owner, a vehicle or some other item is not going to be placed on the sidewalk, but, with a driving surface,
Sure.
you're going to be looking at a car or something else.
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Okay, we want to do would we do I forgot, is the questionnaire now or after the motion?
It's before.
It's before. So are we ready to close the public hearing part of this meeting and go on to our questionnaire if no one has any other questions?
Okay with it.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this meeting and move on to the questionnaire. Is the variance in harmony with the purpose and intent of the city zoning ordinance, yes or no?
I think yes.
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 Okay. Is it, and I think do we need a why? Can I have a brief, short? Well, I just think it's appearance-wise, and it's in compliance because of the sidewalk issue.
I still think he's leaving a buffer zone of
He's got-
grass.
Yeah, all right,
He's being straight up, and, if it was a
right,
sidewalk, he'd be okay.
it'd be okay.
But if,
It's a reasonable use of the property.
Yes, thank you. Is the variance request consistent with the city's comprehensive plan?
Say yes. It's not changing, it's not changing the zone, it's not asking for a redesignation of the zoning, it's still consistent overall with R1 zoning.
I would tend to agree with that, is everybody, okay.
Yes.
Does the proposal put the property to use in a reasonable manner not permitted by the city zoning ordinance?
say yes.
And I
Yes.
think it's
Yes.
because it's a reasonable use of the property.
Right.
All right. Does the proposal impair adequate supply of light, air, and air to adjacent properties, unreasonably increasing congestion of public streets, increase the danger of fires, substantially diminish property values, and will not be materially detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or injurious to the property or improvements in the zoning district or neighborhood in which the property is located. That is a long sentence.
And it seems to change its tone between, we start in the first half, to which you would say, is it doing these things? No. And then kind of the second part is, well, again, no, it's not having any injurious or doesn't affect public health or safety. But it's just the way that it ebbs and flows is still a little
Covers a lot of
rough.
ground.
But I think we overall, so again, it's kind of like, well, do we want to answer in the affirmative or the negative? It's like it's not impacting air, light. It doesn't cause unreasonable congestion on public streets. It doesn't increase danger or
Same,
diminish values.
Answer is no.
Answer
Doesn't
no.
do any of those things.
Right, doesn't do any of those things.
Okay, thank you.
I think one thing that we possibly could do with that particular question is break it into parts.
Yes, I think that would be benefit if we, because there's a couple different elements or that we're stepping through there, but,
I don't have a period to take a breath at.
right?
Are the physical surroundings, lot size, or shape, topography, water conditions, or other physical conditions unique to this property? Yes, I think it's unique because it doesn't have an alley.
But the neighborhood is plotted the same way
The neighborhood,
consistently.
yeah, you're right that
You know,
way.
That
Okay.
was stated in the staff report.
You're correct.
Right.
Okay.
And the other note is that there are other areas in the community also that don't
Like that?
have alleys serving the lots.
So I'd say no.
So it's not unique to this property.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Correct.
Unique circumstances related to the property do not generally apply to other properties or buildings in the same zoning district or vicinity. It's no.
Seeing that there were no unique circumstances identified, that's kind of a redundant question.
Thank you.
Right.
The unique circumstances related to the property were not created by the owner of the property. That's definitely true.
Correct. Right. He didn't cause
No.
this.
Will the variance alter, this is really small writing, alter the essential character of the locality?
No.
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 Is the variance request the minimum amount necessary to eliminate the practical difficulties?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, he's asking for a 1-foot variance. And again, there's still adequate distance between, he's not building a structure he's putting a pad in.
Okay.
Essentially, a wide sidewalk or, that would be useful for parking, so.
Do economic considerations alone not allow the reasonable use of the property? No.
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 No. So, the question I have is we need to have a motion to either allow or not. David?
Okay, I just want to comment, as you've gone through the findings of fact, you've made a determination that there are not unique circumstances. And in order to approve a variance
We have to have
request,
unique
you have to
circumstances.
find unique circumstances. What is there with this particular parcel of property that you don't find on adjoining parcels of property?
That's what I thought when we were going through that, and that's why I went with a yes on that.
So if we went back, now we said other other areas in the community have the same type of circumstance, no alleyway, no adjoining alleys that permit access to other areas of the property. And sometimes that's because of natural features, i.e. state park or river or whatnot. Can we utilize, and I'm just thinking out loud, can we utilize the fact that because there's no alleyway, what's unique is that we've got the athletic fields of the college behind it, or are we?
That was my argument.
Right, and I know that was said a couple times, there is no, and all other factors, but the uniqueness of the property is that it's, I don't know if you would say it's because the property lots are narrow enough to if that's unique. I'm just trying to think, what are our options here because everything else seems to be applicable, but we got to come to this hurdle.
I think
Larry?
it could be unique that, he's trying to have 3 stalls wide for parking on his home, wherever all the other ones are 2 stalls wide for the driveway.
Can staff tell me what the width is of the lot in question compared to the 2 that are surrounding it? It may just be optical illusion in my mind on my screen, but it appears as though their lot is more narrow. The one on the corner certainly looks wider, as does the one next to it on the other side.
I believe
I think it's the direction of the house.
the lot to the
We'll just say the left for.
left
Yep.
should be the same size. The lot to the east is bigger because they have 2 front yard setbacks.
Okay.
So they have a 30-foot setback. 30-foot setback.
I'm going to go back to my initial point and Dave's, that I think the uniqueness to this property, even though there are other neighborhoods and all of the properties have the same problem, is he cannot access his the rear of his property, which would be his only other option, in this case, to park his vehicle. So in my mind, that it limits his options, which makes this unique.
And it's also that side of the house, so what's unique is the way of the positioning of the home, et cetera. What's unique is that it seems to be prohibitive to consider placement, and it would be unsightly, and it would break the characteristics, the other criteria to consider having it on the other side of the house, for example. I mean, it would be unsightly. It would not be, and so maybe that's a fine, even though all properties share no alleyway. What's unique is that this makes the most sense to accomplish because of the way that the house and the general characteristic of the neighborhood would be diminished or altered negatively if he was to pave his front or try to do this on the other side of the house, which might have more width. Again, we're going off of a visual. Lot size, it's the same as what the house to the west, but at the same time, it's like, well, you couldn't pull this off on the other side of the house. I don't know. I'm just trying to, again, look for specific reasoning that's unique to this property, is that this is what makes sense to this property, and what his request is to utilize the west side of his property to place this feature.
Things considered, he is still within the 40% allowable,
Correct.
which in my opinion is almost
Yeah, because
The
it's not
greater
of
issue.
alley access, which is, but also given what he, his basic setup.
He would be paving this anyway if he were going to be driving anything to his backyard, correct?
Well, again, what we regulate, what this 5-foot setback regulation is specific to is to driving areas and parking areas.
Say, for example, if he had a detached garage in the rear and he wanted to get there, you'd probably want a minimum of an 8-foot driveway, I would assume, for bringing a full-size vehicle in there. And so,
I'm going with the fact that the uniqueness is that there is no other way to access his yard. So I'm going to say yes, but
But
I
how
need,
is that different from another residential property that has houses behind it and can't get to their backyard?
here he has enough width on the side, yet
right,
to drive to the rear.
he's still,
So you're saying that if there's access to the back of the lot sufficient width, that we should allow a driving lane in that location?
Correct.
Okay.
Because, you have other parts of town in the old grid work, say if it's a 50 by 165 and you have a 40-foot wide house, you'll never be able to drive from the front to the rear.
can I ask the two of you also, now I'm addressing question 5 and 6 together. Question 5 is the physical surroundings is that it doesn't have an alley, so it's the physical condition makes it unique, but not unique from the neighborhood. And then question 6 is the unique circumstances related to the property. So both of those questions together must both be yes. That was my question. Okay, thank you. Are we saying yes or are we saying no?
So I mean, I think given our what we've contributed and for reasoning and how we've described uniqueness, unless we're not allowed to use our own or the descriptions we provided, then we are reaffirming that would be yes, based upon our discussion.
I'm gonna ask everyone individually, I think, on this so that we understand. Go ahead, David.
Let me just comment that,
Right.
you do have discretion as to interpretation in this particular instance, but your interpretation has to be of the standards that are provided by state statute. So.
Is
you know,
that these?
Yeah.
So
It's-
these are the
it's
standards
the
provided.
findings of fact that you've gone through. Those are the standards provided in state statute. So that's, you have interpretation, the ability to interpret, I guess, how those are applied. For example, lot size or shape. If it was some type of a triangular lot, you could say, well, that's an odd size of a lot, therefore I think a variance is warranted. There could be a wetlands or something. Well, we dealt with it with the nursing home, the hillside. Okay, that's a physical topographic feature that, you could use as justification for a variance request.
I don't know if this question is relevant or not, but just by way of conversation, on that side of the road, in that neighborhood particularly, the lots seem closer together than they are on the opposite side of the road. Is that a true statement or not? Am I correct in that? And I'm just going off of my visuals, and so perhaps that would be another uniqueness of it, is that the lot widths on this side of the neighborhood are narrower than the lots on the opposite side of the street, which tend to seem to be wider. And I'm just using that as an overall characteristic of that area, and I'm just again looking for other tangible, but without having research, obviously, I'm just looking for but it just seems from my recollection, properties on the opposite side of the street seem to be wider.
I don't have that fact offhand.
Okay, and if we can't go there, we can't go there. I'm just trying to think of another characteristic that's unique. And so maybe one designate, and that other side of this is bordered by the ravine. But there again, because those lots in the same neighborhood sharing the same, area have greater width, so therefore create more access. So what's unique about this side of the street is that those lots are narrower comparative to the other, and they, again, I'm just trying to, I think the articulation and what Dave's giving us the boundary on is that we do have the interpretation. And what I hear us saying is that, what are the physical surroundings, lot size? I think the physical surroundings of the neighborhood might be is that on this side they were generally narrower, lots were narrower. But, again, it seems to me, given his property layout, that the uniqueness is that he cannot, it would be prohibitive to go to the opposite side to consider this. So it's only,
I'm going to ask, I think, everyone on the panel or on the commission to please address this issue, whether it's just a yes or no. Mike, do you feel that there is a uniqueness to the property?
I'm struggling to see it. I think it doesn't feel good to say no to anybody, and that's what we're struggling with here. And yet, if we are required to uphold state statute in regards to these requests, I guess that's why I was trying to fish out whether the width of this lot was particularly more narrow than others around it. The answer was it's only different than the corner lot in that regard. The ones next to it are now no wider than that one is. And so I guess as our first answer was found during our time going through the list, that I'm still seeing that it's not unique to other properties in the area. And in its shape or size, physical conditions. So like I said, my personal want is to say yes to this, but I'm not seeing that we can answer yes to those questions.
Thank you. Michelle?
I tend to think there are unique qualities to it because he can't access the backyard from any way other than the front. And there's no way to add an alley to that area. And there are other neighborhoods in New Ulm with that same issue or the same layout. So each of those neighborhoods are unique in their own right. So to me, it is unique. I would say yes.
Okay. David, I think we know how you feel.
right. And I think she very eloquently provided this statement that I would say I concur with her statement
Larry?
wholeheartedly.
I would concur that it's unique that, if you want to get to the back of your property and have a driveway, this is his avenue to do so.
Okay.
And
So that satisfies the answers to the questions, then, if we change those answers to yes. Am I correct, David?
Yeah, the criteria call upon you to identify a unique situation based on the way that the
Our
criteria are
interpretation,
stated.
okay. Thank you. So the questions have been answered. At this point, I need to call for a motion.
Trying to look for the, went back.
Way up.
Let's see.
I did it on a split screen, so now I gotta, it's all broken up. Did I go back?
Page 3.
Page 3. I would make a motion to approve with the conditions, the variance request by Nicholas Brube to allow a concrete parking pad to be located 4 feet from the side property line as shown in the site plan, provided with the variance application on the property legally described as Lot 10, or Lot 10, Block 1, Bouchard, Second Subdivision, to include the staff recommendations that, as stated.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. That was
You should call roll in
Okay.
case of a split vote.
Larry Mack,
Yes.
Dave Munson,
Yes.
Michelle Zellner,
Yes.
Mike Firth,
No.
Ann Earl, yes. Okay,
So this will go to the city council on next Tuesday, July 5th at 4:30.
next Tuesday.
Same room.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is the plat. Consider for approval the preliminary plat of Milford Heights, 6th edition.
Okay, the applicant in this case, also the property owner, Al Paler, on behalf of SMP Development LLC. The legal description of the property is part of Lot 1, Block 2, 5th North Street, 1st edition. Street addresses will be 648 to 685 Haberly Avenue. The property location, it's located north of Beinhorn Street, west of Fender Drive, and south of 7th North Street. This area has also been referred to in the past as the affordable housing project area. The land use designation in our comprehensive plan is low-density residential. The surrounding land uses to the northeast, south, and west is low-density residential. The zoning designation is R1, which is a single-family residence district. We have a mistake in the next section. We no longer have an RA zone. We have an A-OS zone, which is what should be substituted for the RA. And that is agriculture open space. So to the east and west, we have R1. We have R2 to the south, as well as R3. The current site use, it's vacant. Current area uses, to the north, it's farm. To the east, it's vacant and single-family dwellings. To the south, it's twin homes, townhomes, and it's also vacant property. And to the west, it's vacant. That is also the area, though, that was recently platted as Milford Heights 5th edition, and that's where twin homes are proposed to be located. There are no notice requirements. There's been no public comment received to date. Utilities are readily available to serve the lots within the area to be platted. The comprehensive plan does not recommend a park within the platted area. The project description, the platted area totals 5.03 acres. This property is the last to be platted in this area. The plat will extend Haberly Avenue from Beinhorn Street to 7th North Street. The site slopes from north to south. The recently approved plat of Milford Heights 5th edition is located to the west, as was commented. The plat would divide the property as follows. There would be a Block 1 of 7 lots, 2.07 acres. There would be a Block 2, 7 lots, same amount of acreage. The street would be 0.89 acres. All of the plats would abut existing lots, or alleys, excuse me, those alleys are already in place. Plat would create a total of 14 single-family lots. The requirements for a lot in the R1 zoning district are the lot width is 65 feet, the lot depth is 125 feet, and the lot area is 9,000 square feet. All of the lots comply with these standards. The attachments, we have the preliminary plat. It's attachment 1. Attachment 2 is a site location map. Attachment 3 is a zoning map. And attachment 4 are ground level photographs. Staff would recommend approval of the preliminary plat with conditions since it complies with city code requirements. The recommended conditions are to pay the platting fee of $595. It's a base fee of $175 and a $30 per lot charge. Provide an electronic file of the plat in AutoCAD 2016 or newer format. That would be condition number 2. Number 3 would be to enter into a development agreement. There's a note. The property owner previously provided land and received credit for a portion of Fender Park. This contribution satisfies the required parkland dedication requirement for this plat. Then there are 2 potential motions, one to approve and one to deny. I would note that with the exception of the corner lots, as we went through on that previous variance request, all the other lots are 90 feet wide, which is fairly standard for most plats, that there's a commonality of their width. That would conclude the staff report.
Thank you. Questions?
Pretty cut and dry.
Okay.
So with that being, I'll offer a motion to recommend approval of preliminary plat of Milford Heights 6th edition with conditions.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to recommend or to accept the motion. Plat is all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carried. Next item on the agenda is the subdivision of property. Consider for approval the request of Carol Belcher on behalf of Wex Hilltop Acres LLC to use an unplatted legal description to facilitate the sale of the property generally described as part of outlots 155, 156, 157, 158, 159, and 160. City report, staff report.
Okay. The applicant is Carol Belter, as noted. The street address of the property is 1400 North Highland Avenue, and that's an approximate street address. It obviously does not cover the entire parcel of property. The property location is at south of Elm Street. Elm Street is a platted street, but it has never been constructed. It's east of North Highland Avenue, and it's north of 12th North Street. Land use designation for this property is low-density residential. Surrounding land uses found in the comprehensive plan: to the north, east, south, it's low-density residential, and to the west, it's medium-density residential. The zoning designation is A-OS, agricultural open space. Zoning to the north is the same classification. To the east, it's AOS and R1, which is a single-family residence district. To the south, it's AOS, and to the west, it's institutional educational district. That's the site of the New Ulm High School. Current site use is crop farming. Current area uses, to the north we have gravel mining, to the east we have gravel mining. To the south we have crop farming, and to the west are the athletic fields associated with the high school. Notice none is required. There has been no public comment. Status of utilities really does not apply to this particular request. The comprehensive plan does not recommend a park within the designated area. Project description. The outlots in Elm Street were established as part of the original plat of the city of New Ulm that dates to 1858. An outlot has a total area of 4 acres. In November 1998, the city approved the final plat of North Highland Avenue First Edition. This plat reduced the lot area of outlot 159 and 160 from that 4-acre amount. Outlots 155 to 158 have dimensions of 253 by 688, and that's what will get you to a 4-acre lot area. The current owner is proposing to sell the designated property to MR Paving and Excavating. The property that's to be sold varies in width from 187 feet to 286 feet, and the depth varies from 1,021 feet to 1,437 feet, and the change in depth is due to the curve in North Highland Avenue. The property to be sold abuts Elm Street to the north. This street is 60 feet wide and extends from North Garden Street to North Highland Avenue. A approximate 100-foot elevation difference exists between the east and west ends of Elm Street, and a 60-foot elevation difference exists between the north and south sides of Elm Street. MR owns a majority of the property, to the north of Elm Street. And as noted previously, this is the area that is being mined. A total of 9.28 acres is proposed for sale. The staff for many years has advised property owners in this area that the Elm Street right-of-way will not connect North Garden Street and North Highland Avenue. And it's simply because of the elevation difference. You know, we already have streets going up the hill at 5th, at Oak, and in the future at 16th. And if you look at them on a map, you'll see that they're almost equally distant. So it does not make sense to install a street on Elm Street to the top of the hill. So in order to transfer property, a legal description has to be prepared. And city regulations would typically require a platted legal description. However, in some situations, this requirement can be waived, and an unplatted legal description, also known as a meets and bounds legal description, can be used in its place. The approval process to use an unplatted legal description requires the Planning Commission to review and provide a recommendation to the City Council on the request. The criteria to be used in considering this request is found in the city's land subdivision and platting regulations, which is Chapter 10, Section 1003, Subdivision 2. This section allows the City Council to waive a platting requirement provided compliance with the foregoing restriction would create an unnecessary hardship and failure to comply does not interfere with the purpose of the subdivision regulations. The city has approved similar requests in the past. Matter of fact, we recently approved a request for property in close proximity to this site, and that was for a stormwater retention pond. We did that. Attached, you'll find the applicant's letter and a survey drawing and legal description. Attachment 2 is the site location map, which John has on the screen at the present time. And attachment 3 are ground level photographs. I think those are primarily taken from North Highland Avenue.
North Highland Avenue facing east.
Okay. Staff recommendation, staff would recommend approval of the request for the following reasons. Approval of this request would avoid an unnecessary hardship since a standalone plat of the property is not necessary at this time. And B, it would not interfere with the purpose of the subdivision regulations. 2, the use of a meets and bounds legal description is a temporary measure until the property can be platted in the future. And 3, there are significant elevation differences in this area, and the purchase of the property by M&R Paving and Excavating will help facilitate the restoration and reuse of this property in the future. Recommended conditions, number 1, the resolution approving this request will be filed with the Brown County Recorder's Office, and the appropriate recording fee will be paid. 2, an electronic file of the survey drawing in AutoCAD 2016 or newer format will be provided to the city. And 3, the subject property will be platted prior to the issuance of a building permit by the city of New Ulm for construction or construction-related activities on the property. And a motion to deny and a motion to approve the request is also provided. That concludes the staff report.
Questions or comments?
Got no questions.
No.
Do I have a motion?
I would move to recommend the approval of use of the unplatted legal description to facilitate the sale of property as legally described in attachment 2 with conditions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
No.
If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Update on the comprehensive plan?
Okay. First of all, the project steering committee has been established. It's going to consist of 12 members. So it's the 7-member planning commission. We'll have a representative from Milford Township. We'll have a representative from Cottonwood Township. A representative from the Public Utilities Commission. That's going to be Seth Visser. A representative from the Park and Recreation Commission, that's going to be Carissa Biegler. We have a representative from MLC, and that is going to be the president, Dr. Richard Gergler. And that will get us to 12. We've also asked a member of the Brown County staff to join us as a staff representative. And so that's going to be the steering committee. And I think you've have already received an invitation to the kickoff meeting, is the term that's used. That's July 13th at 4 o'clock, and that'll be held at the PUC conference room. City staff, I expect maybe 10 members of staff, as well as the city council have been invited to that meeting as well. And that's one reason why we went with a little bit larger room, is it's set up a little bit better, and I think the screen down there is also a little bit bigger. So we've also set a open house kind of for the community for August 10th, and that will be held down at the senior center. And we're going to start that at, I think, 5:30, sometime in there. We haven't exactly set the time yet. In addition to that, we're going to be establishing a separate web page for the project that will be linked to the city's web page, and you'll be able to go there and get information about the planning process that we're going through. And there will be updates made to that page as we proceed through the planning process. Shortly, we'll be issuing a press release about the start of this project. And there also is a survey that will be going out in our utility bills. John, do you want to just
So, to try to engage the citizens in New Ulm the most, we'll have an online survey that'll be on the webpage Dave referenced, and then we're also mailing out in the utility bills a paper copy of the survey, and that's going to go out second week in July, and they'll be able to drop them off at either the rec center here at City Hall or at the senior center.
And I would note that the survey itself there's only 3 questions, and they're fairly broad in nature, so it'll allow for, a variety of different responses, I guess. And, matter of fact, if you want to see the questions, I have them. If I can give you can take these. If you want one, Clay, you're also welcome to.
Thank you, Dave. One too many. Is that enough? I guess it's enough.
One more.
Yes. Yeah.
No, we've got them.
Yeah.
One too many. That's all right.
That would conclude our report on the comprehensive plan, unless you have questions or comments.
No. I'm fine. Moving on to the reports. City council decisions concerning planning commission matters in June.
Okay, at the June 7th meeting, the council by resolution approved with conditions the issuance of an interim use permit to James Sowers and Dean Burdorf to operate a retail record and vintage toy store in an I-2 zoning district at 326 Center Street. Again, approved with conditions, the variance request of Dwayne Helling and Candace Schoveller of Oak Hills Living Center to allow the vehicle driving lane within 0 feet of a front property line that was adjoining 8th North Street, and then to allow vehicle parking spaces within 10 feet of the 30-foot setback area. And the street address for the nursing home is 1314 8th North Street. Also approved with conditions the variance request of Yaka LLC by Al and Matt Kopishki to allow a covered patio 1 foot from the side property line at 425 North State Street. Number 4 was they approved with conditions the variance request of Lawrence Latito to allow an attached garage 5 feet 6 inches from the side property line at 1446 Center Street. And number 5, they number 5 is different. I'm sorry. They approved the request for the establishment of a tax abatement program with Southern Minnesota Tooling. That's taking place at 1212 North Front Street. And that particular firm is proceeding with plans to put on a building addition. Obviously, with the increase in construction costs since they started this planning process, looking for some assistance. At the June 21st meeting, there was no items on the agenda, but in the work session, there was discussion about blight, and there was a proposal to transfer some of the language found currently in our blight statute and instead use language found in the zoning ordinance. And so the process to do that, obviously, any amendment of the zoning ordinance is a public hearing before the planning commission, so that requires your review and approval. I think the changes had to do with the classifications of auto repair minor and auto repair major, and their use to address blight situation. I think that's a fairly good information. That would conclude the report.
Heritage Preservation Commission?
They reviewed 3 items. First was a sign at 23 South Minnesota Street for the Christensen Group Insurance. That was approved. Another sign at 21 North Minnesota Street for American Family Insurance. That was approved. And then they also approved the demo and then addition to 227 North Minnesota. That's the property owned by Doppelike Vineyards. So they already had approved the removal of the brick building that was leaning on the alley. They also approved the demo of the house, or the demo of the building that used to hold the radio station. So the new building that he's putting up will be all brick.
So it matches, or essentially keeps the character of the neighborhood.
Yep, that was their plan.
Thank you. Is there any further business that needs to come before the commission? If not, we stand adjourned. Thank you.